Hello classic rock fans, and welcome to another unboxing video here on Play That Rock and Roll. Today we are taking a look at a new release from Shooter Jennings. This project is called Werewolves of LA, and it's a live album that was recorded late last year when Shooter and his band played a couple of tribute shows to Warren Zevon. And then just a couple of months later, Warren Zevon was nominated to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and like many of us, Shooter was very excited about that. Unfortunately, the Rock Hall snubbed Warren and he didn't get in this year, so obligatory fuck the Rock Hall always. But to keep the Warren Zevon celebration going, Shooter decided to release the recordings of one of these shows as a live album. And if you're a subscriber to this channel, you might remember my co-host Chris and I did a deep dive on Warren Zevon's discography earlier this year. We were also very disappointed that the Rock Hall snubbed him. We celebrate Warren Zevon here on this channel, so a new Zevon-centric project, yeah, that's something I definitely want to check out. So, let's get this opened up and take a look. Oh wow, this comes perforated. I don't even need to use my Rambo knife that I always use to open mail and nothing else. Alright, that bit's probably getting a little stale at this point. And here it is. No, just a piece of cardboard. Alright. Oh, wow. Okay, here's the real deal. Look at that. Yeah! This is some great album artwork. Live tribute to the dirty life and songs of Warren Zevon, the limited Roxy Red vinyl. Shooter Jennings and the Werewolves of Los Angeles do Zevon. That is terrific. Absolutely terrific. I haven't even listened to it yet, and I'm already happy with it. So, yeah, let's see. Recorded at Rebels and Renegades Music Festival in Monterey, California on December 16th, 2022. And for those interested, the Werewolves of Los Angeles are Shooter Jennings, Brian Whalen, Jamie Douglas, Ted Russell Camp, and John Schreffler. So here's the back cover. Take a quick look at that. You can pause here if you'd like to look a little closer. And let's open it up and take a look at the vinyl. Alright, for this part I will use my Rambo knife letter opener here. There we go. Okay, here. Just pull this out here. And this is the special red vinyl. Wow. Look at that. Hey! That's pretty good. Okay, unfortunately the track listings are not on either side. So, yeah, I think this looks great. Here, take one more quick look at this. Great color. So let's talk about what songs are on this album. Side A opens with Lawyers, Guns, and Money, and Excitable Boy. Yeah, that's a good way to start a show. Mama Couldn't Be Persuaded, Muhammad's Radio, I Was in the House When the House Burned Down. Nice. And then side A closes with My Shit's Fucked Up. So, yeah, this was a real Zevon fan. Shooter knew his stuff here. Like, these are great selections, already a good mix of recognizable tracks and deep cuts. Side B, Poor Poor Pitiful Me, excellent. Dirty Life and Times, of course, The Werewolves of London, and then he closes with The French Inhaler and Desperados Under the Eaves. Wow, yeah, that's kind of a dream set list for a lot of Zevon fans. So, I'm already loving this. Big time respect to Shooter Jennings for putting this project together. It looks great. This totally captures the vibe of something that would be called Werewolves of Los Angeles. That's a great picture. It's a great, red outline there. Of course, matches the vinyl. And the set list is superb, so I'm really excited to listen to this. And I am glad to have it in my collection. Copies are available right now, so if this is something you want to add to your collection, you can go to Shooter's website and place an order. Okay, all that's left to do is to give this a listen. But you know what would be fun is if instead of listening to this just by myself and giving it my review, why don't I go and visit my buddy Chris, my co-host of our Excitable Boys Zevon miniseries. Why don't we both give this a listen, and you can hear both of our reactions to this album. I'm an innocent bystander. Somehow I got stuck between a rock and a hard place, and I'm down on my luck. So you and I have both listened to Shooter Jennings' Warren Zevon tribute album, The Werewolves of LA. We listened to it together. We listened to it separately, so it's sunk in. Before we get to the reaction, what was your initial response to hearing that it was going to be Shooter Jennings doing a Warren Zevon related project?
So weird in a way. I mean, you don't expect that necessarily from Shooter Jennings. He's an interesting guy. I mean, obviously Waylon Jennings' son. He's huge. He's done production for like Brandy Carlisle, who I absolutely love. Marilyn Manson, who I absolutely hate.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's well put in the, I guess, music community.
Yeah.
I was excited.
Yeah.
Because I do like, I mean, his album, his first album, I put the O in Country. I've got that on my car. I still have a CD player because I'm old and I have an old car. But yeah, I was excited. I thought it was an interesting choice. I didn't realize that he was a fan, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I knew he had an album that was like a tribute to Giorgio Moroder, and it's super like synthwave. And I know, of course, he did the country stuff. So I always considered him to be pretty far away from, I guess, what you would call like a Zevon type. But I remember I also saw some videos of him playing with Chris Christopherson and Willie Nelson as like a Highwayman tribute. And that made me remember like this guy is a music industry insider. He knows, he's someone who knows what's up. He said that this project was a direct response to the Rock Hall snubbing Warren earlier this year. He was so excited, that Warren had got nominated, and I think that's why he was doing these shows. So when the Rock Hall did not induct Warren, he was just like, fuck that, we got to keep Warren's name out there. I'm going to do this project and release it. So it's kind of like a consolation prize for people like us who were also very upset at the Rock Hall. Okay, so let's talk about the actual album. I want to go through the set list. And let's just take it song by song, right?
Okay.
And, our reactions to that. So the album opens with probably my favorite Warren Zevon song, Leave My Monkey Alone. No, I'm kidding. Lawyers, Guns, and Money.
You need to leave that song alone because I cannot tolerate another reference to Leave My Monkey Alone. Leave my monkey alone. Leave my monkey alone. Lawyers, Guns, and Money.
Lawyers, Guns, and Money. Perfect way to start a Zevon show, right? And it's one of his quintessential songs. It's such a crowd pleaser. The shit has hit the fan, Followed up appropriately by Excitable Boy, which is another rocker. That's also a good point of the opening of the show. It opens with some Warren's more rock and roll songs. Excitable Boy is a fun song. Again, just given the subject matter, sort of interesting in like today's climate. That's not exactly a song that would how can I say, it would play worse now on the radio than it ever did back in the 70s. And thankfully, Shooter is
not so cowardly as to like change the lyrics or anything.
Shooter's version of a lot of these songs is a little darker in terms of tone. His actual vocal, I guess we would say, expression than Zevon's. And I don't know if that's a result of Zevon having been with like the Everly Brothers or whatever.
Oh.
Like, there's definitely, and it's interesting to see the juxtaposition between like a Shooter Jennings who does a little more dark, a little more like outlaw country. I don't know if that's better or worse or what that does for something like Excitable Boy. I know it. I think improved maybe one or two songs, but I don't think it did Excitable Boy justice. I feel like because he's not our protagonist, right? Like that's the thing. Like we'll call the song like problematic. It's like it's not. I mean, if you feel like Zevon's saying you should bite usherettes and kill and rape women, like that's not you. That's not really on Zevon.
Yeah. The next song was the one that sort of surprised me to see here. Mama Couldn't Be Persuaded. That was one that's from his early albums, right? That was one I straight up didn't even remember.
I think that's his second album, right? That's his sophomore album, right? So I don't love that song from Zevon. That's an example of one where I feel like it was improved on this. It's one of the rare examples because it kind of has the lyrics of like an outlaw country song. It's about a woman who falls in love with a gambling man.
Yeah.
And it feels more, it's better when it's not like piano driven and it's got more of that country vibe to it that Shooter's bringing.
Yeah. After that, we got Muhammad's Radio. That's another fan favorite, old school Zevon song. That's one of his best.
Great song, weird song. I have no idea what it means. I have no concept of what that song, no one really knows. But yeah, I love it. It was a good version.
What makes it a Zevon song.
That's fair.
And then side A closes with two of Zevon's later tracks. I Was in the House When the House Burned Down and My Shit's Fucked Up. And both of those are good listens.
Yeah, good listens, but like personal favorites, definitely. Yeah, it's uplifting shit there.
Yeah,
it's
that's not why you listen to Zevon.
You're right.
Yeah,
you can tell that Shooter Jennings truly loves the material.
Yeah, and that he knows it too, because any Zevon fan knows that the cream of the crop, his best stuff, is not just from those first two, or
right.
those big two albums of the mid '70s. Right. Some of his absolute best stuff came very late in life. These two tracks being good examples of that. Like Warren's peaks are right when he broke through in the mid '70s and right before he passed away in around 2000. So if we flip it over to side B, one of my favorites from his classic era is Poor, Poor, Pitiful Me. Linda Ronstadt, I think, did a really great cover of that back in the day because she changed it up. So Shooter doesn't improve upon really the original or I think Ronstadt's cover, but I think he does a good version of it. He just plays it kind of safe.
Well, I think Ronstadt's is actually the best version of that. That's one of the few that another artist did a better job than we talked about this with Dylan. Like it very infrequently that I feel like a true singer-songwriter, another artist doing an interpretation is better.
Yeah,
I can say that I think Poor, Poor, Pitiful Me is an example of another artist doing it's a more iconic sort of rendition of it than Zevon's.
I agree. It has to be the right artist with the right song, and that's a really tough needle to thread, but I think Linda Ronstadt absolutely had the voice and personality to push it over the top.
And I'll say this, I don't usually like when artists change lyrics to match their gender.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I don't love that. Like, I don't generally prefer it when somebody feels the need to change the gender up of the singer. I will say this: "Poor Pitiful Me" is so overtly sexual that I love the Linda Ronstadt version of it because it's like she owns it as
Yeah.
it's so dirty. Like she owns that shit. Like I love it. It's
Well,
great to
because
me.
normally when an artist swaps the gender to reflect themselves, it comes off as like cowardice or like insecurity. Like, oh, I can't handle singing, like from the perspective. But you're right. Linda isn't just covering it. She's like claiming it as her own and sort of telling like her own character's story through the song, which makes it more entertaining. And maybe that is, sort of the exception that makes the rule, and which is why it's better than even Zevon's original. Cool. Okay, another one from his late era, Dirty Life and Times. Man, some days I feel like my shadow's casting me.
We've talked about it. That's I feel like one of the best lyrics in all of just, I guess, American popular music. I love that lyric.
Yeah.
Because you know exactly what he means.
Yeah.
And it's not direct. It's not like he's saying like I feel like shit. He's saying someday I feel like my shadow's casting me.
Yes.
Yeah, brother.
Been there. No, I like that because like you look at the three songs of his later years. I Was in the House when the house burned down, My Shit's Fucked Up, and Dirty Life and Times. Those are three examples of his songwriting when it's at its best, of, sort of that late period. I'm glad he picked the ones he did. Was there any songs from his later years that you would have liked to have seen instead, or do you think these were the three songs that he should have picked?
I mean, look, I am a ridiculous fanboy for Mutineer. So for me, anything off of Mutineer, it seems like the only person in the world who gives any appreciation to that album is Bob Dylan for some weird reason. So yeah, I would have loved Monkey Wash, Donkey Rinse, or the Vast Indifference of Heaven. I feel like would be a great choice. So that probably my favorite Zevon song is the Vast Indifference of Heaven. So I would have loved that, but that's fine.
Mutineer is not really the late period. That's still that 90s. I'm talking about the last three albums. Because I know you really like Life Will Kill You.
Oh, yeah. Okay. You're right. Mutineer is technically, it's late 90s, though. It's not, you're right. Off Life Will Kill You. No, I mean, he didn't know. Those are the ones I would say make sense for like this, I think.
You wouldn't want to hear Hit Somebody?
Oh, I'm not a. Okay. What's the one I did with Thompson?
Right. Yeah. The Hunter S. Thompson song.
The Kingdom of Fear.
You're a whole different person when you're scared.
Great. I mean, again, I love it. I love it so much that I can't remember the name of it. Yeah. I guess for me, that whole album, I get it. I like it. It's just not. It would never be in my top. It's probably my least favorite Zevon album.
You're talking about My Rides Here, yeah.
My Rides Here, yeah.
I tend to agree, but I would say that it would absolutely be bonkers enough to be included on this album if Shooter brought out David Letterman to do the Hit Somebody as they were singing that version.
This is credit to David Letterman that he understands he ruined that song.
Yeah.
And has spoken about the fact that on multiple occasions, not just one interview. He talked about it. Yeah, I ruined that song. And it's a good song. It's a fun song otherwise.
Absolutely. Let's wrap the upside B here. Okay, so after Dirty Life and Times, of course, finally we get the big hit, Werewolves of London. Definitely sounds like a crowd pleaser. I like at the start of the song, he says something to the effect of, hey, if you know this one, sing along. As if, like, everyone in the crowd doesn't know this song word for word.
It's such an honor to play all this Warren Zevon music in front of you guys. If you know this one, please sing along.
It's a pretty rollicking version. Like, it's definitely a fun sing-along. And, even though it overshadows so much of Warren's career, it's still one of my absolute favorites that he ever did. So yeah, I'm happy to hear that here.
Yeah, sometimes, an artist hits the right mark with their most popular song. It's okay to, howl at the moon out of your best buddy's car
Yes.
while you're driving the Werewolves of London. That's fine.
And then it finishes up with two of his best lyrics, The French Inhaler and Desperados Under the Eaves. That's probably the best way to end a Zevon tribute show.
I will say this. For some reason, the French Inhaler that he does, the version he does, made me not like French Inhaler.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So you did have there was a little negative reaction to that one?
And it wasn't like he did a bad version of it. There's something with the way that Zevon sang it. I think maybe it's because it was about Crystal Zevon. I think we all that. When he sang it, it felt raw and correct, and the way that you would talk about someone who maybe you loved, and you're aware of your own failings, but you're also aware of their own, or of theirs. And when he sang it, it felt authentic. When Shooter sang it, and again, it was like third listen. I liked it the first two times. Like third listen, I was kind of like listening to the lyrics, and I'm like, and we talked about this the way with like the angry breakup song kind of thing. It felt very, very like I don't know, Taylor Swifty to me. I not care for it. It was very like, you don't get to say, like you've talked to us before, like you don't get to say, I'm the artist, I'm making the music. And I never got that vibe from it before. And I want to re-listen to it, actually, Zevon's version, because I feel like I'll still like Zevon's version. Yeah. Did not Jennings' version.
Okay. So maybe that's the one misstep from Shooter, was the French Inhaler didn't come off as quite, I don't know, earnest. Maybe it's because it's not his story on that one, and you really need that background.
It's too personal. The emotions they're feeling are as important to the way in which the song is received by the listener as the words. And I think when you're Shooter Jennings, who's not singing about Crystal Zevon and their breakup and the way he feels at that moment, and the raw emotions, angry, maybe unfairly so, when they're not there, the song comes out as hollow.
Oh, I think that's valid. Yeah, because that's one of his most personal songs, which is saying a lot, because pretty much every song of his was extremely personal. So, okay, so we've gone through the set list. Were there any glaring omissions? Say you could swap out the French Inhaler, and then keep in mind it's Shooter Jennings performing it, so it might not be just one of your favorites. It's Shooter Jennings performing these songs, so you got to think of his stylings.
Well, we didn't touch Desperados Under the Eaves.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, okay, yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, it was great. It
was good. Yeah. Okay.
It was a solid rendition of Desperados Under the Eaves. Yeah.
Yeah.
I liked it a lot. I don't know that you can improve upon the absolute brilliance of that original composition, just in terms of it's, to me, one of the greatest triumphs of American popular music. Yeah. I stand by it.
And that's why you close the set with it. That's why you play it safe, play it straight, and just sort of honor the guy who wrote it. I think Shooter did a very effective job, really all through the whole album, of just, definitely letting his personality into these songs, but never to the point where it overtakes, I guess you would say, the character of the song, the Zevon qualities of the song. Like, none of these become Shooter Jennings songs. Not that that would be a bad thing, not that Shooter Jennings songs are bad, but I guess we're fans, so we're protective of Zevon, and we want his songs to be at their core Zevon tracks. And I think Shooter does a really good job at it, because he's like us. He's one of us. He's a Zevon fan.
And at the end of the day, this is an album made with love.
Yes.
By somebody who is ultimately a fan and wants to keep his music in the lexicon.
Yeah.
And I think he was very successful at that. I think it was a great album in that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is one, as soon as I saw that they were putting it out on vinyl, I don't buy a lot of new vinyl, But this one I knew, I wanted right away. In the same way, I had the same feeling when I saw that earlier this year that The Wind was being reissued on Record Store Day. Because Zevon is something special. It's really because of the podcast series that we did that I've really come to appreciate that. So, so we might have some minor nitpicks, but by and large, I think we're both really happy that Shooter put this project together because it kicks ass and it keeps Zevon's name, fresh. So let's go back to what I was asking before. You can swap out French Inhaler. Maybe you can swap out a couple of others. Are there any glaring omissions? Are there any songs that you would have liked to specifically seen Shooter cover here?
I think he could have done a really good job with Monkey Wash, Donkey Rinse, or with the Vast Indifference of Heaven. Because they're both sort of that kind of, they have that vibe. I think it would make sense. They're darker songs for him. Seminole Bingo, again, I keep going back to Mutineer. Seminole Bingo might have been a really good choice.
That's your realm, where your favorite Zevon stuff is. I'm going to suggest one or two from my favorite era of Zevon, which is, of course, the late 80s. Naturally, I think you should have played Leave My Monkey Alone. No, just kidding. I will bring this up every time we talk about Zevon. I genuinely love that song, but no, I don't actually want to see Shooter play that one.
No, wait, real quick. What would that even sound like from Shooter Jennings doing it live?
That's the thing. I don't think he could have pulled it off. I don't think many people could because, you have to be profoundly silly to make that work. You have to be doing the dance. You have to be in the video.
For the record, Zevon did not make that work, as far as I'm concerned.
All right, but from that same album, and I say this because of the project I mentioned earlier, Shooter did that Giorgio Moroder tribute album or celebratory album, that inspired record. That makes me think he could have done something really interesting with Sentimental Hygiene, the title track of that album, because that is a little more synth, but it's not synth pop, but Shooter knows his way around the keyboards. And I think that could have been, maybe not as part of the concert that this is recorded from, maybe as a bonus track. I think that could have been interesting. And then another one from that same era that I really like, but it's a little more straightforward and I think would really work in a concert setting, was Splendid Isolation from Transverse City, which is one of my favorites.
I was just about, once you mentioned the synth and stuff, I was going to say he could have done an awesome version of Run Straight Down.
Yeah, because that was one that we talked about in our episode of being very relevant still today, lyrically.
Yeah, I think he could have pulled that off.
I think you and I are just sort of cursed in the sense that we both like different chunks of the low points of Zevon's career, which are the parts that no one else even knows about. So I don't know if anyone's going to be doing the projects that we want, but I would say if somehow Shooter catches wind of us doing this video, maybe he'll consider just doing more Zevon content. This is a project that I think maybe he won't do another record, but if he could get this as a national tour, come and play some of the same venues across the country that Zevon used to play, that would be even better than a new album. It would be so amazing to see Shooter play a Zevon tribute show, in our neck of the woods. I would pay pretty much anything as far as a ticket goes to, go see him. Because I think this is the kind of thing that begs for the live experience too, because that's the other thing, live albums aren't for everybody. I like live albums, but I bet seeing the show in person would still hit a lot harder too. You get that ability to sing along, and for us, we never saw Zevon, so this would be the closest thing to it. And there's really nobody out there carrying a torch for him in a live setting. So, I think just to wrap here, both of us super appreciative that he put this project out. The album is great. The song selection here is top notch. Obviously, we're fans, so we have our own little favorites that we'd like to hear. But for an entry level Zevon fan, he gets it right because he does Zevon's classic era, which is an entry point, and he does Zevon's final years, which is also an entry point for a different reason. So just as far as, trying to keep Zevon's name out there and connecting to people who might not be aware of him or very familiar with him, I think Shooter picked the absolute right songs to like introduce people to him, and at the same time satisfy longtime fans too.
No, totally agree. I think we said the same thing when we first listened to it together. I think it absolutely is. He made the right picks.
Certainly. Yeah. Okay. Any final thoughts on this record or anything at all?
I should say this. I would be remiss if he could have done Roland.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right.
That might be the one miss that you were asking about earlier that I neglected to mention. He could have done Roland. That's like a 16th century like Irish ballad or something. That song is timeless. There's nothing like it. It's wonderful. Yeah,
absolutely. It is out of time, and so are we. So let's call it here. Thanks for joining the call. This is a good opportunity for me to say that you and I are not done with Zevon content. We're going to work on more podcasts, one way or another about him in the future. And then we're going to reconnect next year for another new songwriter series, but we will always make time for Zevon.
All Zevon all the time.
All right, Chris, thanks for coming on. We'll see you later, buddy.
Thank you, sir.
Werewolves of London.